Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli, back with another review video, and continuing on, of course, reviewing more Halloweenish materials on the weekends. Yes, guys. So as was teased in the last Halloweenish review, if you figured it out, I'm sure most of you did, that's right. Another piece of Halloween animated material and such, and this coming straight from DiC Entertainment. Yes, good old DiC Entertainment, whom most prominently brought us some great pieces of animation material from, say, Inspector Gadget, anything Mario and Sonic, the list goes on. Yeah. In 2000, DiC Entertainment brought us something Halloweenish, and yeah, very underrated nowadays, but I'm sure for some of us, any of you, would know about this, and yeah. And for me, having a chance to sit down, watch this fully, I had seen some bits and pieces of it before, and knowing about its existence, you know, through YouTube and anybody that's talked about it before, like, you know, say, Melting Man 234, his Forgotten Media episode on this. Yeah, most prominently, Melting Man 234 introduced me to this, so, yeah. Anyways, so, yes, guys, I am now finally reviewing, from DiC Entertainment, Monster Mash. Yes. DiC Entertainment's Monster Mash. Yeah. This is a very interesting piece of Halloweenish material, something animated, and again, coming straight from DiC Entertainment. Yeah, because everything that Monster Mash has to offer, and because I'm sure for some whom would first hear about this, it'd be a bit confusing, right? Because, wait, an animated movie all about the song? Well, not exactly. I mean, obviously, the song itself, Monster Mash, is in this animated Halloween special. But there's more to it because of what the storyline has to offer, the main characters, with what's going on with our three main protagonists of this animated Halloween special from DiC Entertainment. And the animation, having a really cool style and look to it, with its funny gags and, you know, just the songs here and there, of course, with it, Monster Mash. But, you know, point being is that, yeah, some original songs that come straight from this, with the addition of Monster Mash being in it, you know, Monster Mash being redone by this piece of Halloween animation material, and so on. And, yeah, being very creative and such, and with what our three main protagonists they get themselves into, etc. Yeah, and again, just having a chance to finally sit down, watch the entirety of this from beginning to end. Yeah, I mean, it did not disappoint me, and you know, it is what it is. It's very entertaining, very decent, not like a huge animation Halloween masterpiece or anything like that. But there's nothing really bad about it. I mean, that is with the exceptions of, honestly, I didn't even realize this when watching this, that there are a few times that some bits and pieces of animation that we saw earlier are reused a few times, and the lip sync is a bit off. But again, to be completely honest, when watching this, I didn't even notice them nor spot them, so yeah, and I think it's just one of those things where you just don't even realize, you know, that kind of stuff. Anyways, but like, say, on account of the old days of Disney animation when they reused a handful of animation, well, that's another story. So yeah, and of course, even a young child would realize and so on. But for some reason, for me with Monster Mash, not really. I don't know why, but yeah. And I guess I probably forgot about it until, as of now, I'm talking about it. But anyways, I brought it up, that is. But yeah, overall, DiC Entertainment's Monster Mash, it's a delightful, enjoyable piece of Halloweenish animated material to watch and such. For what it is, and just, yeah, everything about it, pretty good. And, of course, paying tribute to what we know so well of the classic monsters, and especially having the monsters into today's society. Today's society with the new monsters and such, which that's what this does, you know? Because our three main protagonists, they've entered into a new generation / new era. Just, yeah, doesn't go too well at first, but in the end, it all turns out good. Okay. So, with the first things I've had to say about Monster Mash now out of the way, now as always, for me, read the description / the story. As the story unfolds, we meet the three main monsters. Frank, the monster from Frankenstein, Drac, the vampire, and the wolf, which being the werewolf. Yep. That's their nicknames, Frank, Drac, and Wolf. They were once the scariest of monsters, but now they have become associated with fun, entertainment for your enjoyment and such. That's why they have been called before the Court of Horrors. They must prove that they can still be scary. And if they fail, they will be sentenced to an eternity of entertaining at children's parties. Yeah, pretty much, yeah, children's birthday parties. And they are given 24 hours to terrify the Tinkelmeister family. Yeah, the Tinkelmeisters. But what should be a no-brainer turns out to be a nightmare. Mom and Dad Tinkelmeister are easy to scare, but Stella and Spike, brother and sister, they're the Tinkelmeister children, are another story together. Yeah. The monster trio becomes frustrated and finally lets the family in on their dilemma. Yeah. The Tinkelmeisters understand and help them try to gain back their scary status. Just when it looks like the threesome will win their case, three new modern monsters show up to foil their plan. It's Stella and Spike to the rescue. Okay. Alright, so, yeah, that being the description / the story, but, yeah. Alright, so, now with that out of the way, let us now dive in / break down Monster Mash itself, shall we? Yeah, so, well, because, yeah, I mean, I pretty much read the whole thing that goes on, but still, yeah. So, that's right, so our main, protagonists, which being three monsters, Drac, Frank, and Wolf, they used to be, you know, the monsters of the era, you know, being scary, terrifying, and it's really nice that, again, Monster Mash pays tribute to the old monster films, and there are a few times where we get some animation that's shot in black and white, and in the case of the three classic monsters, Frankenstein's monster, nicknamed Frank, being voiced by David Sobolov, if I got the name right. Actually, because, I didn't quite realize this. On the IMDb page, because they're listed, okay, because, like, okay, I see, alright, because the English version, well, America dubbed, of course, you know. Okay, so I mentioned the voice of Frankenstein's monster. The Wolfman, I know him. Another good voice talent, Scott McNeil. Yes, I'm sure you know who he is, too. He voices the Wolfman. Drac, which, yeah, being Dracula, being voiced by French Tickner, if I said that right, yeah. So, like I said, all three of them, they were the monsters of the era and so on, living in Transylvania, living in one castle, and terrifying the villagers. And, yeah. But at some point, and as the years went on, yeah, they unfortunately weren't the biggest popular monsters like they used to be. And as of now, all they're doing is just, yeah, being entertainers for a crowd of people, you know, an audience and such. And, yeah, because that's still one way for them to still be liked and to make a living. Yeah. By the way, because the narrator for Monster Mash is a skeleton dog named Yorick, being voiced by Phil Trainer. Yeah, and he's also the pet of, okay, he's the singing voice, okay, he's the singing voice of Yorick, but the But the regular speaking voice of Yorick, I guess it's him, just, alright. But, yeah, so we have Yorick, as I said, we have Yorick, the skeleton dog, whom is the narrator, but also the pet of the three monsters, Drac, Wolf, and Frank. So, yeah, from beginning to end, you know, he sometimes pops in, you know, telling the story of what his three masters are doing. And at one point, they're called in on account of, because them not being scary like they once were, and they're not making a good impression of themselves right now. And, yep, because thus they are called in to court, and, well, that's when a judge steps in, whom is a skeleton, but he's also a basketball player, and he's, like, yeah, bouncing his head. That's interesting. I mean, you'd probably expect the judge to be more like, say, the devil or something, but nope. This is what the judge is. And the judge being voiced by Philip Maurice Hayes. Yeah. Or Phil Hayes for short. So the judge, you know, and just setting the three monsters straight that they're not doing so good, and there's really nothing left for them. Just, yeah, they're not making a good impression on themselves. And even when, say, the three monsters, they have their own lawyer, which, who else than, say, the Mummy? I mean, we'd have to have the Mummy in there somewhere, right? We have the Mummy, but you know who else we're missing? Well, the creature from the Black Lagoon. We're missing that kind of character in this, as well as, say, the Invisible Man. But, you know, overall, this worked out fine with not having those two in. Hey, we still have the Mummy, but yeah. So, the Mummy lawyer, as he's called, and the Mummy lawyer being voiced by Ian James Corlett. So, point being that the Mummy lawyer, he fails at his job trying to help out his three fellow monster pals. Yeah. Nothing good comes from the Mummy lawyer trying to convince the judge, just nothing. Even when we have the prosecutor, whom is, you know, a creepy figure in a cloak and with creepy glowing eyes. He's voiced by Jim Byrons, if I said his last name right. Again, you know me sometimes. Attempting to take down. He wants to see these three monsters be taken down. However, it would come to where the judge decides to give the three main monsters some time to prove that they can be scary once again by giving them 24 hours, as I said, and if they fail, then they will find themselves for all eternity entertaining at children's birthday parties. And yeah, this definitely gives all three of them a major jaw drop. You know, just like, you know, good to see that in any cartoons doing that, you know, the major jaw drop right down to the table. And by giving them 24 hours, literally, because having an hourglass, and when the sand goes down, then, yep, time's up. Yep. And not to mention that, the court did bring up that, the current monsters, who are the hottest monsters that everybody's digging, are, yeah, three, monsters who would end up being the antagonists. And that being, say, the Alien Eater, clearly a parody of the Xenomorph from the Alien franchise. We also have Chicky, obviously being a parody of Chucky, because, well, Chucky being a doll, same goes for Chicky. And Chicky always having a thing where she would always, like, change the channels and such. And this would cause, sometimes, our main protagonists to get tangled up in with whatever happens in a situation where the channels changed. Yeah, Chicky having the ability to do that. Have them be stuck into whatever it is that's on TV, and, yeah, they're facing against it. And Chicky being voiced by another talented voice actress, that is, Tabitha St. Germain. Yeah, you know who it is. And by the way, because that's two voice cast members who would go on to be in the two Scary Godmother specials. Her and Scott McNeil. Yep. Tabitha voicing the Scary Godmother, of course, and Scott McNeil voicing Mr. Pettibone. Yep. that's him. Okay, anyways, and then finally we have the main one of the three current new hottest monsters, Freddy D. Spaghetti. Being voiced by Dave Squatch Ward. And if it's obvious, Freddy D. Spaghetti is a mixture of, say, Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees, and Mutant Spaghetti. Does anybody know about Mutant Spaghetti? Yeah, you can let me know in the comment section, but yeah. Well, I mean, hence, you know, he's got spaghetti literally as a head. So, yeah, so that's pretty funny. And just, yeah, why not just have it be a mixture of all three, and especially on most prominently Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees. Gotta slow down. Yeah, so it seems like that, yeah, they're pretty much gonna take down Drac, Frank, and Wolf. But, you know, hopefully Drac, Frank, and Wolf got this. And whom they have to scare in order to prove that they still got it and they'll succeed in over 24 hours is a family which be known as the Tinklemeisters. And when we come to the Tinklemeisters, yep, because we have Mr. Tinklemeister, being voiced by Robert O. Smith. He's a dog groomer, and he literally has a car that's in the style of a dog. And Mom Tinklemeister, being voiced by Jancy Jod, if I got her last name right, but again, you know me sometimes. Mrs. Tinklemeister, yeah, she's very cleanliness. Dusting, vacuuming, washing anything, just, yeah, being that kind of person. Especially on account that she's a mom. And the children. Well, we have Spike Tinklemeister, and we also have Stella Tinklemeister. Stella, there's really nothing much on her, because basically she's just there. Yeah, but that's not to say she's a bad character. Stella being voiced by Patricia Drake. And Spike, well, throughout this Halloween animated special, Spike doesn't talk. All he does is whistle. And apparently, and when at one point, Stella and the parents go into a song all about Spike. And yeah, because one of the first original songs in Monster Mash is Waiting for Spike to Speak. Yeah, it was pretty good. Yeah, Waiting for Spike to Speak. Again, all about Spike, and basically what happened to him. Why, even still, currently, he doesn't speak, because apparently at one point, he got struck by lightning. Lightning managed to make its way inside of his bedroom window and, boom, strike him. And from there on, he would just be whistling. However, Spike, being quite a genius and really getting into science and experiments and such, but very stressful for the entire family, basically, with certain experiments that Spike does. And best described by Melting Man 234, it's like if Gerald McBoing Boing got into science and such. Yeah, because as we all know, with Gerald McBoing Boing, all he does is just make noise and sounds through his lips. And in the case of Spike, just whistling. Yeah. However, Spike is definitely into monster stuff, and yeah, technically the same goes for Stella. And even at one point, and when they happen to see our three main protagonists on the TV screen, because they just find it amusing and funny with what they're like. But boy, wait until they see what they're in for. Deal with those three. But yeah, but getting to know the family and what each of them are like, yeah, because they're quite funny and are very amusing and such. But at the same time, they're a very good family. That's nice to see. Yep, the Tinklemeisters. So, when it would come to Dracula, Frank, and Wolf trying to scare the Tinklemeisters, they try to, you know, scare them because they're on top of the rooftop and they get themselves on TV, but nothing's working. You know, especially when they're dealing with, like, say, a cute bird on top of the roof. They're trying to dispose of it, but nothing's working for them. Then at one point, there would be a plan B. And by the way, because Dracula, he's basically the leader of the group. Yeah. And not to mention, to mention more about the three of them, because Drac, to describe their personalities, because Drac, you know, acting like the leader and such, and Frank, because trying to act scary, and he's basically does all the work, and sometimes his body parts would come off because, well, yeah, he is Frankenstein's monster. Sometimes it'd be bound to happen. And the wolf, well, he tries to be the cool one of the group and has quite a lot of humorous moments. Yeah. But anyways, and by the way, because speaking more of the wolf, you realize that as the years passed and where they're up to, the three of them, the wolf's fur color changed, as he got older. That's a nice detail. Yeah. I mean, it's obvious, but still, very cool. But anyways, back on point, because when nothing works for them at first, plan A, then they move to plan B, and this time, they come up with something and they have it on the Tinkelmeister's TV, where a fake contest is happening, and apparently the Tinkelmeisters won, and it doesn't take too long for them to be greeted by whatever it is they've won in this fake contest, unbeknownst to the Tinkelmeisters, that it was all fake. Basically, they win a trip to Transylvania, and to the castle, and yep, well, that's one way for the monsters to really have the spooks happen, and for them to be scared and such, yeah, get the spooks going. So, by transporting them to the airport, and thus them making their way to Transylvania, and the villagers, because at the start of Monster Mash, and when we get flashbacks and, all that on our three main monsters, yeah, the villagers, trying to scare them off, but, they fail to do so. They're still there! The same group of villagers! I mean, but who cares? It's a cartoon, so what matters? Anyways, so, yeah, the villagers being there, not greeting them and such, and the Tinkelmeisters think that they're probably upset because they didn't win the contest, but the fact that there never was a contest. And once they all make their way to the castle, pretty much the rest of Monster Mash is, yeah, taking place in the castle. And everything that goes on in the castle, well, very amusing, and with Drac, Frank, and Wolf attempting to scare them. Most prominently, Mr. Tinkelmeister is the big scaredy cat. And for a little bit, Mrs. Tinkelmeister and Stella and Spike, they don't really sense anything scary going on. But until, obviously, it would be bound to happen to them once they realize. So, Mr. Tinkelmeister being the first to be quite nervous and scared all around the castle, and especially on account that whom they've interacted with so far, with Drac, Frank, and Wolf, they don't suspect anything towards them. Even when, say, at one point they were flying on the plane, Drac was in disguise as a stewardess, and Mrs. Tinkelmeister said to Drac as the stewardess, "You look familiar." Looking good, Drac, in that stewardess getup. Anyways. Yeah, not to mention that with what else happens on that airplane, because Frank and the Wolf, they're up at the cockpit, and yeah, I mean, they managed to make it there safely, even though there's at one point lightning that strikes. Frankenstein, his head popped out of the cockpit on top, and he got struck by lightning, but, well, I mean, he can pull it off with being struck by lightning like it's no big deal. Anyways. But continuing on and to speed things up some, because, yeah, with what else goes on in the castle, I mean, eventually, because Mr. Tinkelmeister would finally be scared, and he would be disposed of. He'd be taken somewhere that, well, makes you wonder, because where did they take him? Where did they dispose him? Well, obviously, they're not going to do any harm to him, and say when we would get more of Mrs. Tinkelmeister, there's one point in this where she realizes and notices that, oh man, the castle is dirty and dusty, all of that, and she spends her time quite literally to clean up the place, and boy, I mean, yep. She does pretty well, and even when Drac, he attempts to try to go after Mrs. Tinkelmeister himself, but he keeps failing, no matter what, because getting in her way, and when she's washing something, because at one point she washes his coffin, or by using the vacuum, his cape, and his whole getup gets sucked into the vacuum, and he's in his underwear, and every attempt he tries, because he's mainly trying to bite on her neck. But, yeah, it doesn't work at first. But I mean, after all that, and when Mrs. Tinklemeister, she finishes cleaning, I'm guessing, the entirety of the castle, because we only see the main part of the castle, like the main living room or something, and where the door is. You know, there's the fireplace and so on. Just that. But, you know, she did pretty well. Honestly, I don't know, because could we tell a difference after she did all that cleaning? I guess, but for me personally, I didn't. Yeah. But then finally Drac would scare Mrs. Tinklemeister, and after that we don't see her for a little bit. So yeah, now they got Mrs. Tinklemeister. Now all that's left is the two kids, and it does become quite a bit difficult for them at first. You know, even say when Frank, he tried to scare them, but he had no luck on them, especially when the two kids, Stella and Spike, they found themselves in a laboratory, and they just found themselves playing a game, and like some body parts moving around and Frank getting in on it, and yeah, Frank failed to scare them the first time. And then there's a moment where Stella and Spike, they managed to lure the wolf by placing a rope, and it gets attached to his ankle, and basically giving him a spa/grooming, yeah, just like what their dad does, you know, being a pet groomer/dog groomer. And poor Wolf, because after getting that makeover and getting a spa/groom, just, yeah. So, yeah, Wolf was not able to scare them, just, yeah, and again, no luck on trying to scare Stella and Spike. But eventually, and at some point, they would manage with Stella. Then at one point, there's a moment where the prosecutor, the cloaked figure with the scary glowing eyes, well, he starts to realize, and when a gargoyle from the castle comes to alert him that Dracula, Frank, and Wolf, they're succeeding, well, the prosecutor, realizing that this is not good, he's gonna lose, and with Drac, Frank, and Wolf winning, and he'll stop at nothing to take them down and to win this. And this would lead to where, yeah, it's obvious that the prosecutor would send out Freddy D. Spaghetti, Chicky, and the Alien Eater to stop what they're doing. So, yeah, that way the prosecutor can win. Yeah, and technically the prosecutor's kind of cheating, but oh well, what can you do? Anyways, so as I said, they managed to scare Stella, but all that's left is Spike, and, well, they don't have any luck on Spike at first, but eventually, and still to speed things up, Spike would end up finding where his entire family is. They had been hidden in a shed, yeah. And, well, yeah, shed, but, a dresser and stuff like that. You know what I'm talking about, just, yeah. And, yeah, by finding them, and by this point, and when, yeah, our three monsters and the Tinklemeisters, they come face-to-face with one another, well, like, are the monsters gonna get them or something? Nope, because this time, they need to have a talk. The Tinklemeisters have to know the truth, and that's what would happen. So Drac, Frank, and Wolf, they make it very clear to the Tinklemeisters what is happening and why they're here / present in the castle. And it would then lead to another original song in Monster Mash called When We Were Bad. Basically, them going on about the good old days of when they used to be bad and be scary, all that. But sadly, when they lost their touch, yeah. And it wasn't like it used to be. Now, that was another pretty good song, yeah, When We Were Bad. Yeah, and sung by our three main monsters. And there was some of the other original songs, yeah, one before When We Were Bad, yeah, because the original songs in Monster Mash was a total of 3, yeah. But yeah, and the one before that was the Heebie Jeebie. Now, that was another pretty good one, too, yeah. So, yeah, with when we were bad, and Drac and Frank and Wolf going into detail of what has happened and their attempt to try to scare them so they can find themselves back in and all that jazz, just, yeah. And, well, that's when the Tinklemeisters, and especially the kids, they assure the monsters that, they could still be scary and all that, just giving them positive things to say and so on, But that would all be interrupted when, our three main antagonist monsters step in. Chicky, the Alien Eater, and Freddy D. Spaghetti to stop Drac, Frank, and Wolf from what they're doing. And this is where more terror begins. More terror/horror, where they try to stop the monsters as well as take on the Tinklemeisters. And because the climax that happens between them, is pretty good, and with, some funny moments here and there, and how each of them are defeated. But that is until, say, before we have a chase through the castle. They would get into that same shed, the dresser, I should say, where they hid the Tinklemeisters. They would get in, and apparently it's an elevator. Yeah, Frank was trying to push the button, it wasn't working. Then Spike pointed out that it wasn't plugged in. So once it's plugged in, they go down the elevator and still trying to avoid the three antagonist monsters. But then it would lead to, at one point, say, Chicky using the remote to mess around with them. But when they would find themselves in the laboratory, it would then occur to the Tinklemeisters to give Frank, Drac, and the Wolf a makeover to make them, look bright and new like they used to be. And with a montage of them fixing up our three main protagonist monsters, they look better than ever, like they used to. Especially on account of the Wolf, because he looks young again, with his fur being brightly brown and such. So once that's taken care of, even, say, Dracula, he had to take a liquid potion, and with the add of a lightning strike, they're ready to go. And thus, when Freddy D. Spaghetti, Alien Eater, and Chicky step in, well, that's when they come face to face with each other. From one batch of three monsters to the next, And the defeat and demise of Freddy D. Spaghetti, the Alien Eater, and Chicky is quite funny, because it's like, at one point causing the Alien Eater's teeth to break, and Chicky malfunctioning and being destroyed, and and the batteries starting to drain. And then when it comes to Freddy D. Spaghetti, well, Dracula, most prominently, sucking out the noodles from Freddy D. Spaghetti's head, and now he's just drainless, you know what I'm saying? Like, all that spaghetti's taken out of him, now he's just flat, his clothes and such. So that's very funny, because with the defeat and demise of those three batch of monsters. Okay, so after that, well, back at court, well, because we see Drac, Frank, and Wolf there, and, well, unfortunately, they didn't succeed during those 24 hours to prove that they can be scary once again. But, at the same time, they did a good thing, taking on those three new monsters whom are the antagonists, and, by saving and protecting the Tinklemeisters, but at the same time, the Tinklemeisters helped them out. But it's unfortunate that they lost. However, someone at the court being present, Spike, Spike is there, and all throughout this time, because he had been whistling, we finally hear him speak, and Spike being voiced by the same voice actress who voices Mrs. Tinklemeister. Yes, her. Basically, Spike explains that, and with why he never spoke. I mean, I guess it really had nothing to do with the bolt of lightning that struck him. It was mainly because that he has this comic book of monsters, and it made him scared to talk. But once Drac, Frank, and Wolf stepped in the picture, and they were the first real monsters he ever encountered, and he admits that the new monsters were easily frightened by them. That's why he didn't speak, because of those three monsters, Freddy D. Spaghetti, Alien Eater, and Chicky. But until now, it's thanks to Drac, Frank, and Wolf. And, that's another thing, because there are a few times in Monster Mash where they talk about this that, apparently because nobody not really caring for the mythological, like, monsters, like, in reality and such, and instead, and up to the events of Monster Mash, people really getting into and preferring more of, say, the monsters that are created from, say, toy lines and all that. But that's not really the case. Yeah, because of course we all still care about, say, these group of monsters and that are on my shirt, right? So, yeah, of course we all love the monsters of, say, Dracula, Frankenstein's monster, the Wolfman. The list goes on. So, yeah, Spike, he manages to help out Drac, Frank, and Wolf, and not to mention that Spike's speech becomes very moving to everybody in court, even the judge, yeah. And because of this, the judge, he uses a legal loophole to reinstate the monsters into the Ghoul Guild for eternity. Yes, good on them. They're back in the Ghoul Guild. And this would end up leading our three main monsters into the Monster Hall of Fame. So, yeah, that's great to see. And, well, after that, everything's good now for Drac, Frank, and Wolf, and not so much for the prosecutor and those three antagonist monsters. Yep, sayonara, you've lost. Well, one of the last things we see is, and as we're getting up to the end of this, the monsters, Frank, Drac, and Wolf, they pay a visit to the Tinklemeisters, and they actually offer the Tinklemeisters to officially move in to their castle. And as of now, the three monsters, they're going to be very busy, having their own movie studio. Spike is considered to be a star in what they're going to be doing. And not to mention that they're also, and which they do, we see it at the end of this, where they have built their co-owned amusement park, Monster Mash Park. Yep, and everybody attending to the Monster Mash Park, which being on castle grounds, and, in the amusement park, it features a ride where tourists can get scared by the classic trio, with the addition of of Freddy D. Spaghetti, Alien Eater, and Chicky. Well, they got what they deserved. So yeah, even the villagers, they seem to be okay with what's now in Transylvania. And I guess they seem to be on good terms with our three main monsters. Yeah, our monster slash our classic monster trio, I should say. Yeah. Good to see. So, yeah, it's great to see how all ends, and, yep, a bright future for our classic monster trio, Drac, Frank, and Wolf. Yeah, and by the way, because, as was mentioned, and yeah, because at the opening and closing for Monster Mash, we, of course, do get Monster Mash, and Monster Mash's rendition of Monster Mash with, new singing and chorus is pretty well done. Not to mention that Yoroko, the skeleton dog, he sings Monster Mash, because the main singer, he did the Monster Mash, yeah. And, not to mention that in different countries, there would be a different song / tune playing. Well, I'm guessing, and yeah, as like what Melting Man said in his Forgotten Media episode, it's probably due to copyrights or something, not able to acquire Monster Mash in it. I don't know, just one of those things, just kind of ridiculous, but it is what it is. What can you do? Yeah. But not that I'm making a huge big deal about it. Not to mention that if you had, maybe some of you did, and if you're aware of this, and you can also find it on YouTube easily, at the very end of the VHS copy of Monster Mash, there's a special version of Monster Mash where it plays clips of Monster Mash, the animated film, along with showing clips of the classic Universal monster films with the original version of Monster Mash. Yeah. Very interesting. A nice little treat at the end of the VHS tape. And, it's one of those things that, some VHS tapes had. It's like, I know that, like, maybe, say, a few of those, like, any VHS tapes of anything Nick Jr. had that kind of stuff. It's like, best example, because I had a VHS copy of Blue's big musical adventure, etc., and at the very end of it, well, there were a few of them, a few, like, special treats where just, like, characters popping in and such as the songs from that were playing. If you know what I'm talking about, if you owned that, yeah, that being a good example right there. Anyways, but, yeah, just overall, what a great way for Monster Mash to end, and, yeah, just DiC Entertainment's Monster Mash is a very delightful, entertaining, decent piece of Halloweenish animation material to watch. Yeah. Everything about it from beginning to end, the storyline, the cast of characters, paying tribute to the classic monsters, and with, you know, the new monsters that would step in, how they're done, the Tinklemeisters, really good and funny animation here and there, some good original songs, and with the addition of Monster Mash, yeah, everything about DiC Entertainment's Monster Mash, really good and enjoyable. And I'm giving Monster Mash, oh, what the heck, because you know how much I enjoyed this, just, yeah, I'm giving it 10 out of 10 stars. Yes, 10 out of 10 stars for DiC Entertainment's Monster Mash. And what about you guys? What did you think of DiC Entertainment's Monster Mash itself? Did you know about this before? Did you own a VHS or DVD copy of it? Not to mention that because it's had some DVD releases, even like, say, most prominently being featured with other pieces of animated Halloweenish materials, like, you know, say, Archie, Alvin and the Chipmunks Meet Frankenstein, you know, that, and others. Have you seen it online, like, you know, most prominently YouTube? You can easily find it on YouTube, and as I mentioned earlier, that little treat at the end of the VHS tape copy of Monster Mash, that, yeah, have you seen this before? What are your fondest memories? You know, any favorite moments to come from DiC Entertainment's Monster Mash? Did you get some good laughs? Do you have any favorite songs and with the characters? Favorite characters? Just overall, what do you think of DiC Entertainment's Monster Mash itself, with what all I've had to say, my review, and yeah, what did you think of my review? Leave comments and give this review video a like, as always. And so, guys, with all that being said, thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of DiC Entertainment's Monster Mash. More review videos are coming your way. They're going to be awesome. Keep looking forward. And I will see you guys in the next video / review. And of course, continuing on, reviewing more Halloweenish materials on the weekends. Stay tuned, because what I will be reviewing next is something else animated, and it also has to do something with, well, just vampires, yeah. And to best describe it, well, let's just say it involves a famous space ranger from Star Command coming face to face with a robotic space vampire. Yeah, I think you know exactly what it is that I'm talking about. Just, yeah, again, stay tuned for that. Take care, and peace out. Monster Mash. Keep monster mashing.